Today, the blue shark. Fantastic personality. I had a great time. What is it about the blue shark that you like?
I think what's favorite of mine on the blue shark is first and foremost its color. It's a gorgeous animal, and sometimes in these different contrasting backdrops like night and green, it really pops and it makes for an amazing photography subject. But it's also a bold animal. It's something that's indifferent to us. It's one of those animals I wouldn't say trusts us, but feels indifferent to us and really can come close to you and allow great images and great photos to be taken of them because they are so bold. But I think that's one of the things that I enjoy the most of them.
What was I witnessing today when I thought its skin was changing color?
There's a multitude of different kind of colors throughout. There's like gold around the nose and the sides of it. There's almost like a purple to blue, and it like a hyper sheen when it changes around the dermadenticles hit the light in a certain way, and the skin almost looks alive.
Tell me about the transoceanic migrations and how that relates to the blue shark's design.
All right. Well, a blue shark's design is designed first blue, and it's counter shaded. You look down at it in blue water, you can't see it as well. But you look up at it into the light in the white, you can't see it as well. It's blended in there. It only shows you when he wants to show you. And in green water, it's murky anyhow, so he's hiding out. As far as their transatlantic journey goes, they're designed with large pectoral fins. They're very thin. They don't need a lot of food. They have gill rakers inside their gills that allow them to take in plankton type microbials, just like whales and basking sharks and whale sharks do.
That's not a
And
common feature in sharks.
Not a common feature, no. But it's in the blue shark, and it's something that allows the shark to gain energy even in these areas that are very lacking in prey. Also, it maintains a lot of energy from those long pectoral fins. It's not always constantly swimming and maintaining its altitude and attitude. It's always just kind of sitting there at that certain level. And has a very long caudal fin, a very long tail, and that actually keeps up the energy too. Like the amount of ribboning that goes down the tail sends out enough force that it's like less force from the actual caudal keel to the fin, and the fin is actually what's ribboning out the force, just like a fin. Like if you wore a scuba fin, your foot by itself is not doing much, but once you put the fin there,
Right.
it settles it out. The longer the fin, the harder and faster you move. Same thing with blue sharks.
Another feature that stands out to me is the big eye.
Well, it's actually like an orange eye if you can really look inside of it. And it's got this cat-like iris. It's able to close and open dramatically, like really tighten up and not allow a lot of light to go in areas where it's like sitting at the daylight and high daylight and it's hunting in there or foraging or scavenging. And it allows it to open up really wide and go really deep and see things at night. It also has tapetum lucidum, which is the same stuff inside of cat's eyes that allow them to see at night. And that stuff is really helpful in really low light situations. So having these abilities to open up their iris really big and then also have the tapetum lucidum allows them to see very well in the dark. And it's like, just like a cat, when you flash a light in its eyes, you see this reflection come back at you. Mm-hmm. That's what that is. It's one of those things that you can only see when you see the animal, but when you like photograph it, you film it, it just doesn't come through. Like really what you saw today is something like, it's like what I tell everybody, this animal doesn't exist in any zoo or aquarium in the world. You have to go out there to see it. And when you see these things and you confront these things, you're going to see new things. You're going to see new things that you appreciate about it. And there's one big thing about an encounter like that, is not only do you get to see this animal gets to see you. And at the end of the day, like, that animal interacted with you. It's like that's become something special to people. It becomes something they take away. It's like there's so many things that these animals possess, strength and beauty and character, that human beings find endearing, that this becomes this icon. And when it connects to this icon, it never goes away.
And what is it special about the blue shark that causes it not to do well in captivity?
I think it's the way the aeration is throughout it, and like the closure of space, something that's open oceanic and stuff like that. Like usually the makeup would be because of aeration, like there wasn't enough oxygen going to it. And even when it seemed like it was confined inside of its space. And none of those animals really understand space. There'd be no way that it really can constrained to those confines. And a lot of things are set up to be more for the person,
Right.
not for the shark.
Right.
You look at it, it's got this blue background and this clear front. We're sitting in the dark. The animal looks, sees dark over there, and then looks the other way and sees light blue, assumes it can escape. So it just races off to it, hits it, knocks its face apart. And it's like they don't really recover really well like that. It's like throwing pelagic animals into a coral structure. They're going to bump into everything. It's like these animals aren't designed to be in the areas that we confine them to. All throughout the Atlantic. And in all areas throughout the Atlantic, they do different things. They mate in some areas, they breed in other areas, they hunt in some areas. I mean, really what it comes down to is when they come up the coast, or any coast, they come up into someone that wants to exploit them, be it hunt them or kill them or in whatever way. They have to come into contact with that and rebound from that. And when they travel up our coast in the United States, they're taken a lot by trophy fishermen, they're taken a lot by tournament fishermen and people who want to catch the largest shark, but they also may or may not know that the sharks are at their peak point of weight because they're pregnant. A lot of them are pregnant, these animals that they catch, and they're right at the peak of right about to give birth, right to come up here up north and give birth like a lot of the makos, and they're right at that point. And they catch them early in the season, right before they get a chance to do anything. And it's a real shame that these animals don't get a chance to really give birth. And to cut off like an animal's ability to do that right away seems to be like cutting their Achilles heel. It seems like something that if more people knew about it, it wouldn't be so popular. It would be one of those things that was thought of as being inhumane.
Don't fishermen understand how important it is to let the cycle of life continue?
I think a lot of fishermen really, to their core, what they really want to do is they want to be out there with the sharks. They want to see the sharks. They want to experience the sharks the same way that nowadays it's evolved into people in photography and film and art. They get out there and they dive with the sharks. And there's a lot to be said in ecotourism. And there's a lot to be said of like going out there and seeing them and going there and taking a bunch of pictures and doing no damage and coming back with all this and leaving nothing behind.
And you've gotten to witness a turnaround of that sort recently with a friend.
Well, Brian. Brian's one of my closest friends. He's actually one of my one person I can say that our relationship has grown through Brian's revelations and how Brian has grown himself. And he used to be a commercial fisherman. He used to see all the horrors and the nightmarish stuff that we talk about. And at first he was very indifferent to it till I started taking him out to do stuff privately. When I would go out and film sharks, I would take him with me and I would be like, come watch and wrangle a little bit. And he fell in love with it. And he fell in love with the sharks, and he saw another viable way to be able to make money is taking photographers out to see the sharks and people who wanted to see the sharks in responsible ways and just do it that way instead of killing and fishing. And he became an ecotourist. For the last 5 years, he's been an ecotourist and not a fisherman. And it was nice to watch his transition to that, to watch his child become enamored with sharks and have a million shark books and a million stuffed sharks and now just know every shark's Latin name because of something that just started from, hey, come check this out, see if this is cool. Maybe this is a little bit different than what you're used to.
Do you remember his reaction the first time he saw a shark in the water with the shark?
He's seen sharks plenty. I mean, but
not
seen,
on the deck of a
he's seen them on
boat?
the sides of the boat. And what a reaction to a fisherman is, the whole big thing is their instinct is to not fall off the boat. That's what they tell themselves, and that's what they tell each other. Don't fall off the boat. That's where the biggest danger is. So falling off the boat means drowning, sharks, all these things to sailors. And when they pull them on the deck, they're not happy to see them. They're either dead or dying or flipping out. So they're very hard to manage. And these men who have never seen them before have to put their hands on a flailing, crazy shark and try to save its life. Or do they wait for it to be somewhat dead and throw it in? It all depends on the man and the circumstance. And Brian slowly became one of those men that he saw that stuff and he was like, he would push to release like sharks when they did catch sharks, rarely enough. He was a squid fisherman. It wasn't as often as long lining or anything, but it was something that did do a lot of damage to a lot of wildlife. I mean, and he sat there and he watched what could happen, and he watched all the damage to the wildlife, and he became appalled to it, and he changed it, especially when he had his daughter Ella, who now is a complete, like, you know, warrior for conservation. This little kid knows more about animals than we do.
So it's very important for people to witness these things in order for them to care about them.
I believe through confrontation comes understanding. Nietzsche said through confrontation comes understanding, and it's something I carry my whole life. It's something that I always felt with sharks. It was like anytime that you felt that it was something new or exciting or anything, that you were going to understand it better by seeing it. And I did. Even as an artist, I was able to, you know, identify, and I'm sure other artists have been able to identify better with the animals and their subjects and stuff once they see them.
And what about your clients? Have any of them liked sharks less after you've taken them out to see them?
Well, anybody that's come out on the boat and seen the sharks, I mean, I wouldn't call them my clients. They're more my friends. I mean, a lot of these people are people I know and stuff, and I go out to film to really for fun and for them to be out there, and it really just helps us all sit there and appreciate and film the animal. But how do they react as well, as far as like they come back from it? I've never had anybody come back with a bad reaction from seeing a shark. They've always come back and thought amazing things of the animal, thought new things of the animal, and be certain the things you love, like Jacques Cousteau said, the things you love you protect, and that's what happens to those people, is when they're confronted with that, when they come out and film and do stuff, and that changes them as people.
Instead of just waiting for the commercial fishing industry or whatever it is to blame to change, what can we do on a daily basis to help a little bit?
I mean, really, what a normal everyday person can do to help sharks is, well, first, it's one of the most popular animals in the world. It's all over the place. It's all over the news. It's all over the shark, you know, television, everything. I shouldn't even talk about that. But, what can we do? What could you do as a normal citizen that really just wanted to help sharks? You would look into the conservation agencies, the ones that had things to do with the most things that you identified with, and those would be the ones that you wanted to try to get contact with. You'd want to see what they were doing and get involved or be able to help them in whatever way you really can. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of really good ones that are doing a lot of good, that actually sit there and really try to help the animals and legislate things and do things. And it feels like there's been a big turnaround for sharks. There used to be a point where everybody hated them, and I think now in the world it's become like there's quite a lot of people that now love them, and the future could be good for sharks if it keeps going the way that we've done in the past, and what we started to continue to do a little bit. It's going to be horrible, not only for the sharks but for the whole oceans. It's going to be quite an imbalance. Right now in Cape Cod, there's millions all throughout New England. There's millions of spiny dogfish, and it's almost like plague-like amounts. Not to be confused with the smooth dogfish, which is rare and hard to find. It's the spiny dogfish.
But how did that happen?
It happened because there was an imbalance of the animals that eat these animals. There were certain species of shark and other things that ate spiny dogfish that eventually taken out of the food chain
By
fishermen and natural, like, sort of sea temperatures. I mean, it could also be natural events that accelerated something, but also fishing doesn't help. But something in the ocean became an imbalance, and that's what happens. And then those animals become overabundant. They start taking from the food sources that other animals, as well as ourselves, utilize, and it starts to become really this mess.
So when people see all these sharks coming from the ocean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a sign of a healthy ocean with abundant food. It's actually a sign of something going wrong.
It depends on the shark species and when, but the spiny dogfish, when you see it all come out of the ocean, that's not because of a healthy ecosystem. That's because of an imbalance in the ecosystem, definitely.
Are there any other explanations you have for why it's able to, people are able to think that everything is fine, even though it's so bad?
It's easy for people to say anything is fine when things are so bad when you look outside and you look past it or you don't look at it. And the ocean is one thing that a lot of the people are disconnected to. There are a few people that are, and there's a huge sect of people, I should say, that are, but as far as like coastal countries, these are the ones that have to deal with the oceans. People locked in the United States or anywhere landlocked don't really deal with the oceans, don't really think of the oceans, don't really think of the repercussions that what happens in the oceans will happen to them. And really that's amazingly important, is that like unified as a culture and everything, we have to understand how important these things are to our existence. It's there for a reason.
I like that last line, actually.